we have to really start with how fundamentally powerful culture is, all forms of culture, including visual art, music, language.
We can rebuild buildings, we can rebuild bridges, we can rebuild schools, but if we do not incorporate our story, our art, and our culture, and our history.
A cultural framework. The theme for our community is community, culture, and commerce. And that's not just what Ashe says, that's what everybody says.
Part of the creative placemaking work is not about arts and culture on its own, but arts and culture as it is integrated in how we think of healthy communities.
What's important to you, what's important to me, how might we use arts and culture to advance our joint missions?
Revisit with some of our partners, but I'm going to introduce a couple new faces at the table. This is our Mayor President from Lafayette Parish, Joel Robideaux. I'm going to wave to the Robert Melanson, again from Melanson, Christophe Pilut, also from Melanson, Ethan Jordan from Alliance Francaise, and Jesse Guidry from LCBC, our tourism office, Lafayette Travel. All right, so we're gonna, now that we know kind of who is in the room from our earlier session, we're going to ask them some questions about what each individual organization is doing to be a good partner in French friendliness and helping Lafayette to be as French as we say we are. But I'm gonna give you a shameless plug really fast because we just got a notification this morning that our Lafayette sticker emoji app is ready for download as of this morning from the Apple Store. So just in time for festival, so there's some French emoji stickers that you can utilize and specific to our culture. Hey Olivia! That you can use for festival. So it's laugh emoji, laugh dash, EMOJI, that's how you can look it up. All right, so Mayor President, you want to tell us a little bit about why the Create Initiative and Culture in French is important to you in Lafayette?
Sure. Can I tell the story first?
Yeah.
I don't know, are we constricted on time? I'll go quick.
No, you don't.
I'll go as quick as I can. So we decided, right, that, and it sounded like a really good idea that didn't turn out quite as good, that I was going to record a message at the airport to welcome everybody to Lafayette, and I said, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. I'll try to do it in French too, even though I don't speak French. And so we had our intern here from Logique to translate it, but it's been kind of a crazy week, so I literally got it about 8 minutes before the deadline. So I'm looking at all of these words, and then there's this phonetic line underneath it, and I'm saying, okay, I don't have many chances to record it. So anyway, I suffered through it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take the Codafil philosophy that we just want people to try. Don't not speak it because you're afraid you don't sound good, you know, just jump in. And so we did, right? And I did it and recorded it, and it was really not good. From a non-French speaker, I knew it wasn't good, right? So I can imagine for somebody that speaks the language that how bad it sounded, and it proved right because someone called someone that flew in from, I guess, from somewhere, heard it and complained to the airport, so they pulled because they said it was terrible and it's not a good, it's not good now. So I'm not saying that in any way to sound like I'm offended because I knew it wasn't good. And the reality is I probably needed Mode or somebody to kind of give an intro to say, hey, we know this isn't good, but we're trying, you know? And then do it. So if whoever complained about it is in the audience, you now know the backstory, and it was well intended, right? And we're going to work on getting it to where we can have something there, and whether it's me or somebody else. I just thought for festival it would have been really good to have that for whoever was coming to town. So I forgot your question. But that all happened this morning, so it was fresh on my mind, and it had to do with what we're trying to do. You know, we're really trying to make the efforts to represent ourselves in a more bilingual way, and so that was one example that failed. But notwithstanding that, it was about the CREATE initiative, maybe, and so.
This is what it's like working with them.
I know, I apologize. So, y'all's sympathy for Kate having to deal with this on an hourly basis. But really with the CREATE initiative, which is much broader than just the French language, but it's founded in our culture, right? The whole CREATE initiative is about our culture and the economy that is generated because of that culture. And so anything that we can do to enhance those cultural components that make us unique and make us a place where people want to come and visit. And typically when they come to visit, they try to figure out how to come back or how to move here or get a job and want to stay and fall in love with the place. And so the CREATE initiative is in place, and I'm very proud and that we were able to get that in place. And also, you know, undaunted, albeit there's a lot of pressure now for it to succeed, because it will, I think, bring Lafayette to another level and allow us to expose ourselves in a positive way, and the culture and all the things that make us unique to the world. And so that's the underlying focus of everything as it relates to CREATE: cultural, recreation, entertainment, arts, tourism, economies, the acronym that it stands for. And like I said, the culture is the first word, economy is the last word, and all those things in between that make us who we are. So certainly this is as large, if not the largest component of our culture that we need to be proud of and we need to showcase. And so that's, besides the fact that Kate has to deal with me on a daily basis, we are really pushing forward with a lot of initiatives, and Kate's been great about, we're looking into signage, we're looking into doing a lot of things as a city that will reinforce the efforts of all these guys over to my right. So that's pretty much the city perspective.
For the record, your story time is one of my favorites.
Okay, good.
Okay, so since I'm relatively new to the Lafayette International Center, I thought it would be best if I passed the microphone to one of our staff who's been working on a project for 2 years, and so I don't know that I could do it justice the way that he could, since he's the one who worked on it for so long. It's basically a project related to the Réseau de Villes Francophones, of which Lafayette is one of the 3 founding members, and the idea behind it is to create a website that has a lot of French-speaking resources available, so that way we can attract more French-speaking tourists to the area, and that they would basically be able to put together an entire tour all in French: restaurants, tour guides, sites, shops, whatever. And so very recently we were actually able to post it on a website, and so I'm sure it'll be continue to be a work in progress, but for now I think it's a big victory that we have something like this up and running. So I'll pass the microphone to Mr. Christophe Pilut, a native of France, but now naturalized Cajun, and someone who's been with the Lafayette International Center for 8 years as our interpretation and translation specialist. So, Christophe.
Merci, Robert. Okay, I'm going to say as well a few words in French, since it's the Semaine de la Francophonie. Donc, effectivement, I'm going to repeat it more or less in French, but this is, ce projet est un projet issu du réseau des villes francophones et francophiles d'Amérique. Réseau en plus court. Et on a commencé il y a 2 ans ce projet. On voulait développer en collaboration avec Québec et Moncton et les autres villes du réseau, un parcours des endroits francophones d'Amérique. So we wanted to develop through the réseau and our partners in Quebec, Moncton and the other cities some routes that describe where you can find in the Americas, and especially for us in the United States, the resources, the locations where you can find whether French heritage or even French speakers. Et donc, ce premier projet a ensuite été relayé par la demande de la législature de Louisiane pour développer une carte de la Louisiane des ressources francophones. And then that project with the réseau has been reinforced by the request from the legislation or the legislators of Louisiana that requested to Codofil to make an inventory of all the French-speaking resources in Louisiana. And a little bit further, we have also developed, and we are working closely with Lafayette.la, the LCBC, the tourism bureau in Lafayette Parish. Our collaboration means that we try to reinforce and encourage our French visitors to come in Louisiana and in Lafayette and discover that there are also French speakers, French resources here, and develop the tourists coming from the French-speaking countries. Et donc on a aussi, à travers la collaboration avec l'Office du tourisme de Lafayette, essayé de développer une carte des ressources francophones qui existent dans notre paroisse, là encore pour pouvoir développer le tourisme francophone venant des pays francophones. And so what I'm going to present you today is just two websites. One is on LafayetteTravel.com. Ce que je vais donc vous présenter, c'est deux sites sur lesquels l'un c'est sur le site de l'Office du tourisme, LafayetteTravel.com, and the other one is a Google Map. Et l'autre c'est une carte sur Google. Okay, so maybe should I go and click, and it's going to be easier for you, Kate. So this is LafayetteTravel.com. And you click on things to do and trip ideas. Correct, Jesse?
Right.
All right. And if you scroll down, you see a list of itineraries here. And is it down here?
It's not
No, it's not here. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jesse.
no, this is my fault. This is in Christophe's fault. I forgot to add a picture to it.
Okay, so it's still on things to do, but you have to click on trip ideas. Yes, correct. Thank you. I think we are going to double dip and create also a picture of it. Ok, et donc ça c'est sur donc, les choses à faire. Lafayette en français. And now you see that list of different things you can do, starting from early in the morning, having a breakfast at Poupard, commençant le matin en ayant un petit déjeuner chez Poupard, en allant à Vermillionville, going to Vermillionville, Johnson Buccaneer for lunch, visiting the cathedral and the oak tree that doesn't speak French, but doesn't matter. Wait, because on the website of the cathedral, here you have an audio in French that describes you everything. So you can have a guided tour in French from that. Carpe Diem, where they do speak French, and so on. The Tour des Marécages, the alligators, of course, they speak French, as you know, when they want to speak. And Randalls, well, some French speakers, some people, certains serveurs parlent français. Live Studio pour avoir des cours en français. dance class, Sola, les violons, Sola. Demandez Chris, qui est derrière le comptoir, qui parle français. And also a list of some of the bed and breakfast où ça parle français. Okay, I check myself, they do speak French there. So this is just the beginning of the great collaboration we have with LCBC. The idea is maybe in the future to have even more pages in French and maybe have a kind of macro website that would be totally in French and where our French speakers, visitors, would have a total experience in French. Ça c'est pour que dans le futur peut-être on aura un micro-site sur le site de LCBC qui sera complètement en français pour que nos visiteurs aient une expérience qui soit totalement en français. As you know, the difficulty in Louisiana for you that are French visitors is that the French exists, is spoken, but is hidden. Le français est caché, il faut le trouver. So the idea of this is to show you where you can find it, help you a little bit, and especially develop our visitors, the tourists especially, that are sometimes coming to our office or to the Codophile and say, hey, well, that's a great place, but we hardly find some French speakers during our visit, so that's something we want to change. So, donc on veut pouvoir changer ça et faire que nos visiteurs puissent voir et trouver les francophones. Ok, une autre ressource, another resource, but it's a little bit linked to the previous one, is that what I just showed you previously is also available through Google Maps. So how do I scroll up here? So this is a map of Louisiana, and especially of Lafayette area. And this map is available as well for you guys. Donc ça c'est une carte de la région de Lafayette en Louisiane. Cette carte elle est à votre disposition, elle est sur Google Maps. On that map you can see in blue the itinerary that we just presented previously. Vous pouvez voir en bleu l'itinéraire que je viens juste de vous présenter. But there is also some other resources, and if you click on each of them, for example, you are looking for a doctor, a medical doctor that do speak French, okay, you click here and you find the name and the location of that person. You are looking for mechanics that do speak or whatever other resources of French speakers. You click on it and you find it. It's not necessarily on the blue line, but it doesn't matter. It's a place where you can speak French, find some French speakers, and it's just the beginning. Ça c'est juste un début. We try to develop that and enhance and make an inventory of everything that is French in the Lafayette parish, but also much broader. Since it's the mandate of Codophile to do that in Louisiana, and for the réseau even do that larger all over the United States. Et peut-être même faire ça à travers tous les États-Unis, à travers le réseau des villes francophones, ou à travers toute la Louisiane, à travers le mandat du Codophile de répertorier les endroits où on parle français. Voilà, that's it. Question? Des questions?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just wondering, because I've just spending time in Arnaudville and some of the other towns around here, and cities, small cities that have, French-speaking aspirations and locales. And I'm just wondering if you have maps that help, people who come to visit often have a car, and I'd like to drive to some of these places. So in Lafayette, do you have a way of directing them to those places as well? Within the region, within an hour or something, 2 hours?
Well, okay, first, as I told you, this is available through LafayetteTravel.com. We try to drive all our visitors, international visitors, or all the tourists, as much as possible on LafayetteTravel.com. We have that great website with a lot of information. So that's the first idea. I think that we should all try to do that, because LCBC is also working closely with the other CBDs in the surrounding parishes, and so all together we can really have a platform to make sure that our visitors find the information they are looking for. So that's the first thing, and it should probably start, in my idea, from there, because that's the place for tourists to go.
And to answer your other question, that was actually part of the planning process for this week. We wanted each city, each host city, to kind of have some skin in the game. So one of the things we requested was that they do an inventory of their own French-friendly businesses and places within their own community, so that we could help Christophe build this up. And so that is more, I guess, more of a midterm goal for us than short-term. We were a little ambitious in trying to ask that ahead of time, but that's what we'd like to have.
And once you have access to these resources, for example, through the link to Google Maps, you can build yourself your own trip. You just pick, you select what you want, and you draw your own route. So that's something that is kind of convenient, I think. Google Maps, for example, is really working well.
Any other questions?
Merci.
Again, Jesse Guidry with Lafayette Travel. Actually standing in for my boss, Ben Berthelot, today, but I'm our Vice President of Communication, so I'm going to try to do my best to share with you guys what we have coming up. But before I do, the work that Christophe did was monumental. It's a lot of data that's collected all in one place. To my knowledge, that's never really been done before. And what he didn't show you on that map is that all of those places, or I'm going to say the majority of those places, have descriptions in French. So it's not just like a marker on a map. Somebody can click and get some basic information, which has never been done before. Whenever he first approached us about doing it, he was like, "What, do you think that you guys could use this?" I was like, "Obviously." It's a huge resource for us, just to outline that, but to have those translations in French. That was critical. And so once he built the map, we kind of started talking about the itinerary, and then that led to discussions about a microsite on our, it's a lot of people, whenever you go to their website, especially tourism bureaus, you have the ability to translate in French, but it's more or less a Google Translate. While I feel that they appreciate that, I want to do something more curated and more specific to that audience, because not everything on our website they're going to be interested in. So one of the things that we're going to be developing over the next year, because it'll take some time to develop, is working with Christophe, first of all, with that map, to continue to develop different itineraries centered around themes, food, music, culture, outdoor, etc., utilizing that map that he did with those descriptions, and doing dedicated French itineraries. So that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit and the easy thing to do. For those that don't know, we've got a really robust blog. If you go to LafayetteTravel.com, all those things in the header slider that you see, if you click on there, it'll start directing you to different stories in our blog. The second aspect of that microsite is utilizing some of our top performing content. I try to give a really diverse set of different things based on topics, everything from geocaching to food tours to what to do on a rainy day or what's open on a Monday. So what I'm going to work with Christophe to do is those top performing posts that I know that are going to translate well to our French audience, we're actually going to translate those and have those on the blog, in addition to doing, I'm thinking right now once every other month, but it could be a once a month specific French blog tailored to that audience, because what we're seeing more and more is people coming in, not necessarily from that area, but speaking various levels of French that want to be engaged in that. So I want to be able to not just have them click a quick translate button on their website, but really have content that's curated and translated specifically for them. The only reason that we're able to do that is because Christophe is in our office once a week, and I can't say enough how invaluable that is to have somebody being like, hey, no, you guys really need to be doing this, or have you thought about doing this? It's a whole other perspective. Just like marketing up north is very different from marketing in the south. His insight and just having various conversations about projects that we're working on lead to whole other things. So that's that's been a really great partnership for us in terms of enhancing our French offerings. But beyond that, and that the map that Google map that he put up there is linkable from our site as well. So if you go there, you'll be able to get to that, and I think we'll continue to evolve it and make it, polish it and do things. But some of the other efforts that we've partnered with them on, and you guys kind of did this on your, is the downtown walking tour. There's also a Fruitown walking tour that's in French and in English, and I think it's actually in a third language too, I'm not sure. That's a huge draw whenever people come in. You were saying driving tours, I'll get to that a little bit later, but those walking tours specifically in the downtown area, then I think it takes you all the way in the Freetown area. That's really great. There's historical markers. Whenever you're walking past places, it'll prompt with certain things. That's a really great walking tour to promote. People are always appreciative whenever they can have something in their own language and not just have to like walk down and just kind of guess for themselves. So that's been something that we've been promoting heavily as well. In terms of driving trails, I'm learning more and more that whenever I'm on a trip, if I have to drive there, I want to drive as little as possible once I get there. People that have never been to this area, our back roads are beautiful, right? Most all the roads that are on the scenic byway or the corridor are really great to get out there and explore. So one of the things that we're working with specifically with these 3 trails, we've got a plate lunch trail, we've got a boudin crackling trail, and we have a dance halls trail. All 3 of those branch out beyond Lafayette Parish into some of the smaller communities where there is more accessibility to just everyday people that speak French. What I'm trying to do is work with what Christophe has done, what I already know in our brochures, and trying to make these, I want to call them itineraries, because it's not the right word. It's not like go here and do this, but it's more like you can't go to 50 boudin places and try them all in one day. So doing a mixture of all of them, like a food stop, then a cultural stop, but that guides you along the way, specifically at those places that speak French. So it is something that we're trying to develop by way of cars. So we've got the walking tours in place, and the next is integrating all of our tours that we already have that are driving tours, and kind of refining them a little bit and translating them. The other thing that we've put a hard focus on, thanks again to Christophe's efforts, is translating majority of our brochures. Right now, I think we have about 4 of them that are translated into French, and we started with our enticement brochure, obviously, because that's a nice piece. Whenever we go, we can hand that to people. But we've also did our dance halls brochure. I don't know what it is about the dancing and the music. I mean, it's obviously great, but somebody requested that we translate that in French, and the second that we did, we can't keep them on the shelf. As a matter of fact, like, I made myself a note to reprint because we're out. And the same thing for boudin and the plate lunch brochure that we're going to be developing. One of the first things I'm going to do is translate that in French, because one of the biggest questions is like they want to drive, they want to see the back roads, they want to see the countries and stuff like that. So again, I know I've been like Christophe's cheerleader here, but without him, we weren't able in a position to do all this, because as you guys know, if you want something translated, you got to hire a translator, and it can get costly. So having him there, not only his insight into, being, I think you said a native Cajun, which I love, or a natural. Yeah, I like that a lot. His insight has been invaluable to us in helping, and I think it's just reaching out with these partnerships and talking with people, very much like you guys are doing right now. It kind of opens the doors to, I know what we do. We could do it every day, but if I start talking to somebody else, I could tilt it just a little bit and be like, oh yeah, we could do that very easily, to something that, may have seemed impossible. I'm sure whenever you started the map, you were just, it was kind of like this huge undertaking, and as we kind of started chipping away at it, we can reuse that in a number of different ways. So I can keep talking forever. How long do I have? Okay, I'm just gonna go straight to questions. Sorry, I talked really fast. If anybody has any. Yes?
I have a question about one of the pictures.
Okay. Is it the one from Vermilionville?
No. That's a good picture.
Yeah.
I think it's Brenda.
It is.
Great. It's a king cutter and I think a pecan hammer.
Oh, the boucherie tools, that one?
That's a boucherie. Those are boucherie tools. Okay.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what I wanted to know.
Yeah, that was one of our blog stories that we did, speaking of French and cultural in those communities. That was one of the things that everybody kind of told me whenever I did. There's no way that you could put a pig bleeding on a blog and people would love it. It's one of our top performing blog posts. Like, I literally have a picture of a pig being sliced open with like blood on it, and it's great. People are fascinated by it, and it's one of those rural community things that is commonplace to us, but somebody that comes here has never seen it before, they're fascinated by it. And what's unfortunate is that typically whenever I try to structure things, it's tell people the history of something and then tell them how they can go do it themselves. There's not that many boucheries anymore around Mardi Gras. There's one on Mardi Gras in Lakeview. There used to be one in St. Martinville. But that's getting fewer and fewer, so I was glad that we were able to capture that and do all of that. Maybe we'll translate that blog post into French as well. Any other? No, I don't have time for questions.
Yeah, just a comment. Yeah, just one comment regarding the French that is used on these resources. Well, we didn't want to have, how to say that? Okay, let's say that we want to have this French understandable by both the international travelers coming from France, Belgium, Canada, Quebec, and so on. But also we wanted to make sure that we kept some flavor, the flavor of the Cajun French. So I didn't work by myself, in fact, on these translations, and different people that are from here, and all together we built that language. I feel that if you intend to do the same on some of your own resources in the different parishes surrounding Lafayette, please make sure that you do that. I think it's important because our international visitors, French speakers, they want to understand what is written, but also they want to feel the flavor of the Cajun French. And that's something that we have unique and we should be proud of.
Lafayette. So I basically said this presentation a little while ago. I've got pictures this time, so it's cool. Plus, I can go a little bit deeper into a few of the concepts as well as some precise visions that I have about where we hope to lead this organization, and it seems like people are excited about it so far. So this basically is a saying that we're trying to develop internally. It's a spin on what has been said earlier about helping make Lafayette as French-speaking as we think we are, or we say we are, and especially as French-speaking as our visitors believe we are when they get here, right? So we have a bunch of tourists come in town. They think they're coming to a Francophone place, Lafayette, Louisiana, right? Louisiana approaches all that French, Cajun, Creole culture. They come here and it's like, where is it? So Alliance Francaise, if you don't know much about it, we're essentially teachers of French. We're part of the French Foreign Service, again, and tasked with propagating French language and culture throughout the world. 800 or so of these chapters around the world, and we're the Lafayette chapter, right? So we have a responsibility throughout the network to really push the envelope about what French in America means, right? We're not just part of Francophonie, but we're the Americans in the network that have this authentic French from us. So how do we begin to do that? So starting next month, we've already got some things in action, ready to go. Specifically, everyday French, français, tous les jours. That's, again, as I mentioned before, your basic beginners and intermediate, advanced, but targeted towards, our market is to try to get corporate customers, right? Of course, you can go and take a class at Durio, you can go take private lessons somewhere, but we've also got the fortunate, because of the network, because of its origins, because of its connection to the French government, we have the official stamp of approval. Like whenever you want to get rated on how well you speak, we have the kind of certifying international standards through our organization for how well you speak French. So this is for if you want to learn how to, basic French for tour. If you want to go to France and be able to to order McDonald's or whatever. All right, and so we're working with a company here in town. We're doing the final paperwork now, CGI, Montreal-based company, tech company, worldwide, tens of thousands of employees around the world, for them to be a kind of flagship customer of ours. They want their employees as a perk for their employment to have their employees speak French and maybe to be able to do corporate exchanges in other offices around the world. So we're going to be working closely with them to design what that looks like. We've got a network of teachers who've taught business French, speaking of business French, around the world, in the headquarters in Paris and other aspects. The great thing about being in Lafayette is that we have this network of French immersion teachers that have come through the Code of Phil network from all over the world, whether from Seychelles or Haiti or Guyane Francaise or Belgium or wherever. So we've got assets that can be utilized to teach professionals and working adults and people in the tourism industry, Francais pour le tourisme. These are the courses that we're starting, ready to go. You can come on the website right now, sign up for them right now. So we are the boots on the ground to get more people speaking French in this region, and not just around the dinner table, but working in French. So part of the idea is one of the visions that I had is why don't we have, for example, in the business school at the university, a French researcher who's doing maybe cultural tourism, and all of his courses are taught in French. Why don't we have someone in the engineering department teaching French for databases? We have one of the most important big data centers in the world here, but we can begin to start leveraging our culture even to produce work in that regard. And then the other aspect of our activities is obviously the cultural stuff. So I'm doing a few little shameless plugs for our organization. We're doing some fundraising right now. We've got some fun activities coming up for us the week during the festival. Après Festival, After Fest. DJ Moon is tonight, electronic dance music. Tomorrow is Latin night. All this is happening at the Omni Center, by the way, 227 Jefferson Street, next to the Green Room, next to CGI downtown office, around there, near that dog. And on Saturday, Latin night, Friday, Saturday night is going to be Afro beat, Afro pop. So we're reaching out to different organizations. So the Latin organization who's responsible for the Latin Festival in town is working with us for the Latin night. We've got the African Student Union working with us on this one. And then before festival, so this is tomorrow, we've got a B2B breakfast. Again, the Consul General of France graciously accepted an invitation to attend and talk business in French. Also with the Office of the Canadian Consul General. Our partners, again, CGI with that, Travel Host Magazine, of course, Code of Phil, International Trade Center, all helping us out graciously with that. And then again, as I alluded to earlier, the Girl Scouts on Saturday morning. I had an idea one night at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why don't we start, Lafayette has the ability to start producing new products in French with major brands. Alliance Francaise has the brand cachet to be taken seriously with global brands. So I reached out to the Girl Scouts. Hey, why don't we try to figure out if we can do all Girl Scout badges in French? All the STEM ones, all the camping ones, everything. And maybe even let's do some Girl Scout cookies that are like from here. They're like, that sounds amazing, let's do it. And we're going to start signing that letters of intent for that on Saturday morning. So really cool stuff's happening. We're getting the thing moving, and we're going to do some streaming VR stuff in the soon as well. So if you want to get to know a little bit more about that, ping me later on. My background's kind of in tech, so I'm always going to try to go techie. Thank you guys so much, and questions, comments? Yes.
Puisque je suis une francophone, j'ai pas compris ce que vous avez dit.
Ok.
J'en ai compris passablement. Ce sont des formations en français. Ils sont disponibles au grand public
Oui.
sur plateforme.
C'est le code de langage en fait. La mission de l'Alliance française pour tout le monde, c'est comme l'école de langue. Et donc on vend des courses du coup, au public. Ouais. Et aussi, moi-même j'ai l'idée de créer une plateforme à distance pour appuyer l'enseignement.
Donc c'est une plateforme d'enseignement. Si quelqu'un veut venir aux sciences, ça lui permet d'avoir accès au vocabulaire français seulement ou au vocabulaire cajun aussi?
Aussi, toutes les variétés locales. Créole, ouais, ça c'est notre plan. C'est pour nous, on recréer En fait, moi je suis là pour 2 mois en fait. Et l'organisation, on recréé la direction, l'énergie, et pour de concentrer maintenant sur des cours. Et donc, c'est très important pour nous, à Lafayette, de faire notre culture nous-mêmes. Et en 2 grandes parties de ça, créole, chrétien, c'est important de commencer à enseigner, mais enseigner dans un niveau de commerce aussi. C'est pas juste pour
c'est communicatif, mais c'est aussi, dans le sens d'aider à permettre de bons contacts même les avancées.
C'est ça. Il faut vivre en français ici. C'est le point d'un ville francophone. Il faut la langue. Il faut les médecins. C'est ça. Les restaurants. Voilà. Voilà. Et c'est nous qui est responsable de partager la langue. Voilà. Nous sommes l'organisation plus stratégique de mettre en place cette infrastructure humaine. Et donc, avec l'aide de tout le monde, on va créer quelque chose. Oh my gosh!
C'est un bon essai. Moi, je le fais en anglais.
Okay.
2 mois et demi.
Yes.
I've seen in other towns, in other states, the Alliance Francaise has a lot of, there's a membership. You could become a member, and there's chances to be together to practice the French and that kind of thing. Do you have plans for that?
Yes, look, we already have a very dynamic table française, which is started by Alliance Francaise in Lafayette.
C'est où ça?
There's several around. There's a website where we can find. I can give you that information later on, where there's a list of all the various table française around town. It's basically you get together for an hour over lunch, over coffee, or over beers, and you speak French with one another. Just kind of get the community to speak more.
And if I can add, there's also a Creole table as well in St. Martinville. I personally don't know a lot of details about it, but I'm sure if you search around on the web.
Is that the one in the parks? In parks?
In parks, correct.
And I'd be interested in getting that list. We've got a list of French tables as well on our site for recurring events, so we'll compare and contrast and hopefully we can get a consolidated.
That's probably that's the one that Alliance Française used to refer to. And also these different table françaises have different flavors. Not only because it's breakfast or lunch or coffee, but also because some of them are more international French, some others are more Cajun French, so you have to try them all.
C'est ça?
All right, I'm gonna ask our panel some questions that came up as we were talking. Mayor, President, what would success in the French fronts look like for you, for Lafayette?
So the question was, what would success look like for me on the Francophone front? I believe that, we met with our twin from Canada in Moncton, from Moncton yesterday, and so they've done a really good job of becoming truly bilingual in everything that they do, and ultimately that should be the goal. And we're quite a ways from that, as has been pointed out, as my recording at the airport points out. But that should be the ultimate goal, is that we become signage, anything that we push out of LCG should be in both languages. And, you know, I think we can get there. It's just, it's going to take us some time to do that.
This is a question for everybody, so you can answer too, because I know you like this. But what role do you think technology should play in this bilingual effort in Lafayette Parish? And how are we uniquely, possibly positioned to do that?
So, and I'll pass the mic down. Technology is the way that, you know, not my generation, I'll put it that way, learns, right? And engages and participates. And so we are positioned here in Lafayette with this incredible amount of capacity for technology because of the fiber system and the grid that was laid long ago, to where we're on par. There's speed to the home, internet speed to the home. There's 6 cities in the world that are at the level that we are: Seoul, South Korea, Tokyo, Japan, Hong Kong, Chattanooga, Kansas City, Lafayette. Everybody else is secondary. So we're positioned to do a lot of really great things utilizing technology, and certainly the generation that is going to take my place and take a lot of our places, that is the way that they communicate, it's the way that they engage, it's the way that they pretty much do everything. And so I believe it's going to make it a much easier lift than if it was going to require only grassroots, boots on the ground efforts. That's still needed, don't think that that's not. But that combined with the technology that's available and going to continue to improve is just going to make it that much easier.
I think one way that technology would help is, and this was a point made on Sunday at NUNU's by Joseph Dunn, and he was talking about it's one thing to be able to speak French, but it's another thing to have a whole series of contexts in which you live in French. You know, for example, at work, I might speak in French to a visitor, but I'm not going to the post office and speaking French. I'm not speaking French at Walmart. I'm not speaking French at the, at the soccer game. You know, so French is not really a living language, even though so many of us say we can speak French fluently. So technology has helped people who want to attain fluency in French, but I would say it can go a step further and actually help to make up some of the difference, where you can tune into Radio Canada in French, or TV5 Monde, or you can read Le Monde in French, and get the latest news and learn what the terminology is related to a sporting event in France or a terrorist incident in some other country, and that it helps to substitute for that missing context that we need if we're really going to make the full transition to become a bilingual society.
Everybody does have it. We have like 6 minutes. I have other questions if you guys want.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm kind of uniquely tied to this question because my other, let's say, real job is a tech consultant. So we do data visualizations, build websites, data analysis, technical writing, things like that. And I've been doing startups for like the past 10 years in Lithuania and Finland and Korea. So I've lived in a lot of these places where the internet's pretty fast. And Lafayette's one thing that brought me specifically to this role, specifically in Lafayette, is because of things that our president just said. We're so well positioned to do, to push the envelope about what's the next frontier in tech, right? And for me, I look at the stats, and in next year, they're projecting that 1 billion VR headsets are going to be sold. Right? What does that mean? What does French look? What does it sound like? What does it look like? What's the experience of the language in that context? Was 1 billion VR headsets? No one really knows that, but yet we have a major world center of VR research here in the city. We have a major world center of data visualization and data analytics here with the background of backbone of fiber. So we have a huge opportunity to lead the world in French via technology that no other city, I think, in the world can really do right now. So I feel like the time is now to really seize this opportunity.
I know you have an interview too, you have to go, so I'll ask this last question.
Just a translation. VR set, c'est quelque chose pour regarder la réalité virtuelle à travers des
lunettes exprès pour ça. Et ça permet de pouvoir voir en français, en
C'est les questions, Et l'année prochaine, ça va être 1 milliard de SS qui va fondu plusieurs fois en Chine.
C'est un outil qui peut être très... avoir un très impact.
So what role do you see yourself playing in providing a blueprint that what Lafayette's doing can be replicated in some of the other communities throughout Acadiana? Because we're lucky that we have Alliance Francaise here, we're lucky that we have Melanson here, and we're lucky that we have CREATE here, and we're lucky that our tourism office has so much to work with, and they're doing such a good job. But the point of this week is to try to learn from each other and strengthen the region. So talk about your roles, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to say it real quick and then I'm going to dash out. And so I don't want anybody to think I'm being rude. So it came up just a little bit earlier about the roads and outside Lafayette. And Jesse did a good job, but there are limitations because it's Lafayette's International Center, which means it's funded with Lafayette taxpayers' dollars, and it's Lafayette Travel, which is funded with taxes that come out of the city and parish of Lafayette. And so we're restricted in a lot of ways on really how much we can do, right? And I may think and believe that NUNU's is the best opportunity available for all of us, but I can't just go give him Lafayette money because he's not in Lafayette Parish. And so what we all need to figure out is how do we, I know he's thinking, well, yeah, sure you can. But so we need to figure out, though, how do we make those connections, right? We'll fight through all the legal stuff, but how do we make those connections? Because clearly, when I say Lafayette, that is almost required politically, right? But it is Acadiana that we're all here for and what we're talking about, because what happens there benefits everything for every one of the organizations that sit at this table. And so that's the piece that we need to figure out. My role is to pretty much get out of the way and pat everybody on the back and say, we're behind you and I'll help in any way that we can. But there's so many smart and talented and motivated people that have been and are continuing to make this happen. I don't see my role being anything more than acknowledging all of those efforts and those smart and passionate people and keeping the encouragement there and letting them know that government is going to stay out of the way as much as we can. And so that's how I view at least the government piece of it. And thank you all.
For myself, this was a point that I made also on Sunday at NUNU's, and this is something I definitely would like to follow up, is I think we have trouble imagining what a bilingual society would look like. I don't think we have a clear model of that. And that's why I'm very happy that, for example, we have the head of Codafil is from New Brunswick, because we don't have to have someone to imagine what a bilingual society looks like. We have people, resources in our community who know what that looks like, and so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And one of the points I made was we have a big distinction in Louisiana between Francophiles and Francophones. And Francophiles have been our greatest allies. They want us to become bilingual. They are willing to give time and resources. But at some point, if we're going to transition to a bilingual society, we risk excluding those Francophiles who don't speak French. So what does a Francophone event look like? How do we have, just to give you an example, I went to a poetry reading a couple of years ago by a very famous poet, and it was French poetry. And the only thing that took place in French in that whole event was the actual reading of the poem. All of the discussion, the presentation, the introductions, everything was in English. And by looking out at the audience, we could see that probably almost everybody in the audience was a French speaker. But in this case, we had to defer to the English speakers so we wouldn't exclude anyone. So how do we make the transition to a Francophone event and either not exclude people or exclude people as minimally as possible? And so I had a discussion with someone from NUNU, and what we would like to do is to start identifying, you know, what are the parameters that people need to know about if they want to attend a French-only event. Just a few days ago, we had a world-famous historian presenting on the Marquis de Lafayette, and he was from Canada, and it was a real struggle for me to determine whether we should have this event in French or in English, knowing that if we did it in French, we were likely to get a much smaller turnout. And I decided to go ahead and move forward with having it in French. And I have to admit, it was still a small group, but I was very pleasantly surprised by how many people showed up. Now, I'm sure there are a whole variety of factors that influence how many people will show up, but I think this is something that if we do it in a deliberate, conscious way, that we can really begin on the path of having more and more French-speaking events, and as part of our transition to a bilingual society.
Si je peux me permettre, je pense qu'une chose qui aurait été dans cette semaine-ci intéressante, c'est qu'il y ait certaines parties. Je pense qu'une chose qui aurait été intéressante dans la semaine qu'on vient de traverser, c'est qu'il y ait des parties, des résumés, toutefois abstracts, des conférences qui soient données. Parce qu'on avait un groupe d'Haïtiens qui n'ont pas nécessairement, et moi-même, qui n'ont pas nécessairement tout compris. En début de journée, je pense que c'est plus facile. Plus on avance dans la journée, plus c'est difficile. Notre switch tombe à off et on est moins à même de pouvoir suivre les conversations intéressantes. Ça pourrait être des résumés, ça pourrait être des personnes ou un système technologique qui permet de traduire, autant au niveau des speakers francophones, des conférenciers qui parlent français, pour les gens qui parlent anglais. Je pense que tout peut être mis sur la table et on peut faire, bon, c'est une expression anglaise, mais j'aime bien, du brainstorming là-dessus, et voir quels sont les outils qui peuvent être adaptés à l'ensemble des gens, sans exclure une catégorie qui n'ont pas dans leur bagage la langue de l'autre. Merci.
Okay, I'm going to answer in French, but I want to translate for all of you guys what she just said. Essentially, her remark is about the fact that most of the discussions here are in English, even if it's the French week, and that after a few hours of listening the English, they switch back to, I mean, they are not able to concentrate on the English only, and so that we should find some ways to solve that issue. And so I'm going to answer in English to her and then translate in French. Donc on a effectivement, je prends un petit peu la responsabilité de ça parce qu'on avait envisagé de mettre en place une interprétation. Le problème de l'interprétation, c'est que ça ralentit énormément, ou alors il faut faire une traduction simultanée, c'est une logistique assez lourde, il faut avoir plusieurs interprètes qui se relaient toutes les 20 minutes, etc., avec un équipement. Donc on a fait, comme on dit en français, une impasse sur ça. On pensait que, de toute façon, la grande majorité, si ce n'est la totalité de nos visiteurs, étaient de toute façon capables de comprendre l'anglais. Pas forcément comme quoi mea culpa.
Je suis pas la seule.
No, vous n'êtes pas la seule, je sais, ouais. So what I said, it's a little bit our responsibility and myself, because we decided not to have a simultaneous translation during these sessions, because we thought that most of the attendees were English speakers, and also because the translation, well, you need to have several interpreters that are translating every 20 minutes and so on. It's a logistic that is kind of heavy and that we couldn't afford as well. So that's our answer. And again, I say that in Latin, mea culpa, okay. Which in translated, c'est ma faute. It's my fault.
L'idée d'avoir des résumés après certaines parties importantes pour aider les francophones d'être à même de suivre et de s'impliquer un peu plus dans les conversations.
So she said that the idea would be to have maybe from time to time some summary of what was said, and that would help the French-only speakers. Yeah. Thank you.
I apologize, we're running about 6 minutes behind schedule, so probably need to stay on schedule for maybe one more quick comment.
Une dernière question parce qu'on va sortir de l'heure. Merci.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should say. Thank you to our panel.